My name is Farthing. I'm English. I moved to Charleston, South Carolina about 5 years ago. I took a bit of time out because I'd always had this kind of bucket list desire really to try and write a novel. My novel is called Summit. It's the first time I've really undertaken to write something of this scale. What I wanted to do with the novel was really take a lot of my own interests and hobbies and experiences and then create really an exciting adventure story. An adventure story that would appeal to everyone rather than just specialists who might enjoy those hobbies. The hobby at the core of it is mountain climbing and high altitude mountain climbing. The novel is set around Mount Everest. It's a story that I basically have tried to take the factual realism of what it's like to climb Mount Everest, but then create a modern day adventure story with strong, interesting characters and the kind of struggles and dynamic between them. I lived in the Alps for 12 years by Lake Como in the foothills of the mountains, and for that period I was very active as an alpine climber. Climbed a number of the major alpine peaks. I did ice climbing, mountain climbing, and from that I actually also went further afield. I climbed in Alaska, climbing Denali in Alaska, and I went to the Himalaya. So I climbed in Tibet, and in 2006 I actually climbed on Everest itself. A lot of people ask me about my story. They say, you know, is this story true? Is the character you? It absolutely isn't. This is a fictional story. It's a story that I created, but I underwrote with, let's say, the knowledge and experience of what it's like to travel around the world, what it's like to climb in the high mountains, particularly the very high mountains, and the difficulties and the kind of experience that is. But there is one detail within the book that the hero or lead character has, is that he was sent away to school at a very young age, and his defense to that was to hide in the school library. And in that library he started reading National Geographic magazine, and that is actually me. That is the only part that is me. I went away at school at a very young age. I was only 8 years old, and this was kind of like being sent to Hogwarts but with no magic at all. I mean, it was quite a hard experience. So I used to go into this library and I used to read whatever kind of text we were passing around in the school. But in it, they had all these back issues of National Geographic, and I became attracted to them. I started, and it is actually true that within them, I also started to get interested into the story of Everest. Many people have asked me who the inspiration was for quite a range of the characters in the book. With the character Josef Becker that I created, I based it on an Austrian climber called Hermann Buhl. He was an outstanding rock climber before the Second World War. And so, in my character Josef Becker, I take the example of Buhl, rock climber. He went through what happened in the war, and then he converted that prodigious climbing ability to become one of the greatest high altitude climbers of all time. So he is really, for climbers, I mean, an absolute inspiration. He and Reinhold Messner are really the real record breakers of climbing to me. Personally, I can't say I had great difficulties writing. I had always wanted to write. I'd had a very, very busy career until that moment I moved to America. And then I found myself with the time to indulge myself in it. So I did, and I really enjoyed that writing process and really pursuing the ideas that I had. I think the harder thing, particularly when you're really doing it by yourself, you're sort of feeling your way to find out if you can do it, is to then create some discipline to that storyline and make sure that you're creating a storyline that leads people on at a pace that keeps their interest and ultimately brings them to what will be a strong conclusion, and they're satisfied with the book that they've read. It was very interesting to narrate the book. I think when When you've worked so hard to make the words on the page tell a story, it's then quite interesting when you yourself have to pull those words from the page and then through your own voice bring them to life in almost a dramatic fashion. And it's tiring work because you go into the recording studio at 9 a.m. and you read. And it's not like sitting down with your children and reading a 5 or 10 minute bedtime story and making a few funny voices. This is nearly 500 pages. I always envisaged that Summit would actually be the first of a trilogy. There are 1 or 2 characters that I really like. I think they've got legs still to go on. I've done, the first one obviously is very anchored by Mount Everest. And the second one, I'm thinking will probably be anchored by the mountain of Kilimanjaro in Africa. And I'm actually about 100 pages into it already. So, as I say, if I've learnt my lesson, I'll finish in about 150 this time.